Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and The Life of Captain Marvel, issue number 5 of 5. Yes, we're finishing it all up. Okay, so let's get into who actually made this comic book. I got to get through all these black pages first because I did this really weird version of a tribute here. Okay, so Part 5, Championed. Writer Margaret Stohl. Pencils, present day, Carlos Pacheco. Inks, present day, Rafael Fonteres. Colors, present day, Marcio Menez and Federico Blee. Artists for the flashback stuff, Marguerite Savage. So, letterers, the letterer is VC's Clayton Cowles. Cover art, Julian Totino Tedesco. Variant cover artists, Kari Andrews and another one by Joe Quiones. The Kree Cleaner design is by Joshua James, and the logo is by Jay Bowen. And, of course, special thanks to Axel Alonso and Stefan Wacker. Okay, so, just to get through what in general happened in the comic book, is that we see mostly backstory, and this is confirmed backstory that was agreed upon by all involved in Marvel, most recent past by Axel Alonso, and of course approved and further confirmed by C.B. Sobolski. So this is the new origin story for Captain Marvel. It's not a huge deal, but yeah, it's kind of a big deal. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. So there is a new backstory for Captain Marvel. She was always half Kree. That's where the genetic code came from. And it makes sense. It makes sense because where'd all the other Kree, or where'd all the other human genome leave to? You know, the other DNA, if half of her, 25% to half of her was turned into. Crap, this kind of means that I'm going to have to adjust to my 10 things about Captain Marvel. Man, I'm not a fan of that, brah. Kind of mad at freaking Margaret Stohl and all of Marvel for that. That's actually one of my biggest, I think that's actually, that and Cloak and Dagger are my two biggest 10 things about videos. Man. Anyway, so it's the previous version. I'm going to have to update it, I guess. You know how hard it is to update a video? So, anyway, the Kree Cleaner, this coward, this absolute straight coward, she got beat, and she decides, well, I'm going to come back. But you just got beat, so why don't you just be cool about it, man? And then after she comes to accomplish a certain level of what she was meant to accomplish, she runs away. Wow, man. Wow. This story opens up a whole lot, and I like what occurred in this comic book, because I had a question in the previous issue where I said, okay, well, if you know, Carol's mom, Mari-ell, was sent to Earth in order to try and, you know, accomplish a mission. Well, what exactly was that mission? Because it wasn't clear what that mission was. So in this issue, that's addressed. Oh, we don't actually find out what the mission was. It's simply addressed. The question is actually asked, but there's not a satisfactory answer given. That's fine, because all that does is open up for another writer to come along and to finish out what that is. Hey man, Kelly Thompson is going to be writing the new Captain Marvel comic book starting next month. We down. And we know from here that Miss Thompson and Miss Stohl have had extensive conversations with each other. So, me likey. I think that enough of this will be followed up on. There are other things in here that should be followed up on also, and I'm looking forward to seeing them followed up upon. I can't give too much because I'm not going to be giving a whole lot of spoilers that happened in this issue. For the most part, this comic book, like I was saying, is mostly just a backstory for Captain Marvel, for Carol Danvers, for her new updated origin story. Her you know, is it a soft retcon? Kind of. It's a medium retcon, let's say that. So I like that. It doesn't change anything about the character itself necessarily, except now she's got a new heritage to really look forward to. So maybe it does change some things, but she's still her. She's still as powerful as she was before. This may change some aspects about her personality, which I'm down. I'm cool with that. I'm absolutely cool with that. There were a lot of... Here's the thing about the way that Margaret Stohl writes. There's a lot in here that if you're just looking for the outlying story altogether, oh, you'll get it. but you're missing so much by only looking at what you're looking for. If we can just open our minds and sit back and just let the story be read to us in a way, what we actually get is a whole bunch of minor stories in here. Car-ell falls in the hands of no less than 3 people in here. Now, I'm not even including Tony Stark. That doesn't quite happen the way that, we might think it happens. You'll see. But I wasn't even particularly happy with that one. The other 3 I'm cool with. Because I think that women should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. And Miss Stoll writes that exemplary. Okay, I can't get my tongue to move in that fashion right now. I'm really tired. But the point is, she writes it in a way that it actually feels normal, natural, fundamental, even to the nature of human beings. I liked it. I liked it a lot. The whole thing with the Tony Stark at the end, where she's like confiding in him and whatnot, dude, I could see her confiding in anybody else. But like confiding in Ghost Rider, she needs to. But not in freaking Tony Stark. No, I can't see that. And maybe there is something else later. Maybe Kelly Thompson is going to do something where all of a sudden these two are cool with each other. Yeah, I don't like that at all. Tony Stark is a shell of a man, and I don't just mean the armor that he wears. He wears an armor for everything in his life. That's who he is. He's just some privileged little rich kid who had everything hand delivered to him. He was born really smart. He was born with the wealth of being able to go to a school, the greatest schools ever, and get this great education, all that good stuff, and just, I don't care. He's not, there's not a whole lot. You can point to individual, and even if it's more than, you could fit on one hand, you can point to all of the great moments that he's had in his life. He is not in and of himself an inherently good person who's, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. The guy's been able to call on anybody to help him up with his bootstraps. It's not a whole lot that he did on his own. Like I said, you can name the things that he's done on his own. Carol Danvers, however, is a much different, car-ell now, is a much different kind of character. She has had to overcome incredible odds. And it's always funny to me when I hear the naysayers, usually they call themselves comics gators. You could think that you're the gatekeeper of the comics. You're not the gatekeeper of my comics. You've got revisionist history and alternate facts. I've actually got things that I can point to. What do you call it? But they actually have incredible moments where they show Carol, and all throughout her history, and simply collected here in this comic book. But throughout the history of her written character, she's had many obstacles that she's had to climb over or barrel her way right through. And it's one of the reasons why so many of us who are Carol Danvers fans love the character. For the most part, anybody who's got a problem with Carol Danvers, let's be realistic, has always brought up, well, that name actually belongs to Billy Batson's alter ego. Yes, you can blame DC for that happening. In the meantime, and there are multiple aspects you could blame DC Comics for on that front. But hey, man, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. But more than that, they'll complain about the way that she's drawn, because she was drawn very sexually back in the day when these kids were teenagers who used to buy comic books because they weren't allowed to buy Playboy magazines, and there was no internet back then. Again, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. So, the rest of us weren't incels. So, for me, I've always been madly in love with the character of Carol Danvers, regardless of the way that she was drawn. Loved all the things she's overcome to be who she is, and I didn't have to look at it as, me myself as a guy. I didn't have to sit there and say she's very empowering to women. Cool. If you're a woman, cool. For me, I just say she's very empowering. Period. That's who she is. She has had to overcome a lot. And in here, this is no less that story. She has to deal with incredible odds. Now, here's once again where Margaret Stoll comes in and she brings something new. Again, I've had my critiques of her and anybody who writes novels who comes over to write comic books. It's a very hard transition. You're used to relying solely on your ability to tell a story. You're not used to sharing the story credentials with an artist. people like Ta-Nehisi Coates, Margaret Stoll, Eve Ewing, Nnedi Okorafor, all of these people who wrote these incredible stories before, Meltzer, right? No, what the heck is his name? Anyway, a lot of Brad Meltzer, right? A lot of these people, they wouldn't be able to exist or coexist, I should say, with people like Jack Kirby, like Steve Ditko, Gene Colan, all right, Sal Buscema, all these people, these amazing artists who they were actually telling the story back then. And the writer would just come along and be like, oh, let me just, fill in the words that these people are pretty much already telling anyway. There was a very different writing style or creative style, storytelling style back then. You relied on the artist. These novel writers today wouldn't have made it back then. That's okay. A lot of them, I'm sure, wouldn't have been very happy trying to make, and would have probably quit in frustration and been very vocal about it, like a lot of the writers were back in the day when, what's his name? Jim Shooter was in charge, when editorial was telling the story and nobody else, not the writer, not the artist, So it's refreshing seeing writers come in and tell writing stories. It's great. Again, there is that hard transition where you have to coexist with your co-storytell with your artist. But regardless, one of the great things that she brings to this is a new style. I have mentioned many, many times before when I'm doing my reviews. If this is the only comic book that you see me review, then you're not going to know this. But I constantly talk about many aspects of writing, and specifically when it comes to comic books. From a fan, I'm saying? From a fan, someone who's just been reading for 40 plus years. Yes, I read early in my life. One of the things that a writer can bring is a beautiful story that will actually bring emotion to you, that will actually make you cry. And it's cool, man, it's cool. I've said many times, you want to tell a good story that will make a grown man, a freaking straight lumberjack, all right? Beard like mine, physique better than mine, and just eats more pancakes than I do. A naked bear fighter, you will make him cry. Great reference there, right? By telling a good father-son story. I don't care if he's got a horrible relationship with his father or a very loving, trusting relationship with his father, or all the shades of gray in between. You tell a good father-son story, that man will cry. Another good way to do that is tell a good dog story. Just saying. That's why John Wick is just like, it's nothing but mindless action, but he's doing it because of the dog. He's doing it because of the dog. So, you're still going to find that as being an emotional story, damn it. It doesn't have to be Old Yeller. It doesn't have to be Old Yeller. But a father-son story will make anybody cry. Raging Bull, go ahead. Watch that. Don't cry. You've already lost. You've already lost. One of the aspects that I don't often see in comic books is a good mother-daughter story. And here comes Margaret Stoll. Hold my beer. This was awesome. Now, I don't have to be a daughter in order to see that this is a beautiful story. For me, there was a lot of things I just looked at as, this wasn't great because, that's not the kind of relationship that I have with my mom, where you just, like, it's so much talking. Oh my God, it's just so much talking. But I could totally see a woman digging this. And I don't have to go with that too far. I now have all 5 of my comic books. I just read this comic book not too long ago. What I'm actually about to do now is collect all the other 4 comic books and sit down. Ah, crap, wife's working tomorrow. Maybe when she comes home and she's not too tired, or maybe over the weekend, like, here you go, babe. It's Christmas vacation now. Why don't you read all 5 of these books? Get back to me when you're done. And I want to see how she feels about it. Because, wow, this was cool. Obviously, that mother-daughter relationship is not going to be the same as a father-son relationship. It's not going to be the same as a father-daughter or a son and mother relationship. It's not going to be the same. But we don't usually get that in the comic books. Can anybody point to I could be wrong. There might be a good example out there. But could somebody give me a good example of that? Because even Wonder Woman, I'm thinking, it's not really the same. It's not really the same. This is a very different mother-daughter story that I'm reading. And I like this. And it can choke you up a little bit if you let it. There's some things in here that just don't work. It is what it is. But they're really just minor nitpicking things. Case in point, if somebody throws a spear all the way through you, you don't yank it out the same way it came in, man. Like, you push it through. You push it through, all right? You're just going to cause more damage yanking it out, man. Anyway, little things like that. That's probably mostly the artist, but I'm not here to point any fingers. This was a really well-constructed story. And I'm not just talking about this issue. This is issue 5 of 5. This is the whole story, all 5 issues. It was done very well. Dare I say, expertly. Oh God, here it comes, perfectly. It's very hard to find complaints about these 5 issues. They were done so well. I'm looking forward to see what Kelly Thompson is going to be doing after this. She's got her work cut out for her. Definitely got her work cut out for her. You know, good luck topping this, but I'm looking forward to seeing you try. This was great. This was great. Yeah, again, I would really like to be able to sit down and, like, if I ever see Miss Stoll in a comic convention or something like that, I would love to be able to just sit down and just pick her ear for 5 minutes. But like, so when you wrote this, just tell me everything. Leave nothing off the table. Just tell me everything, because wow, this was good. And I would like to learn. I am more than happy to perch myself underneath that learning tree and just empty my cup. This was gorgeous. This was an amazing story. Also, before I sign out, I do also have to give a quick free plug. Wasn't asked to do this, wasn't paid for this, to Captain Marvel News. Am I right on that? Yes, Captain Marvel News on Twitter. Go and check them out for all things Captain Marvel related. Learn about Captain Marvel, see the news coming up, all that good stuff. Dude's awesome people. That's it. All right, guys, I'm done. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.